Thank you for joining our webcast this evening. Our panelists are Dr. Andrew Heyman and Marta Graham. The topic is the metabolic code system. Dr. Heyman?
Great, thanks. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce the metabolic code system, which represents a point-of-care online platform that supports both practitioners and patients in simplifying the care process and making it much easier to deliver a comprehensive plan to your patients. So this work really represents many, many years of effort and expertise developed by myself and Al, as well as many other contributors. And I think that it provides something that is something that's very unique in the marketplace. There really isn't any other resource like it with respect to having a system that pulls together all sorts of information and personalizes that information for your patients. So the metabolic code is our brand in that regard, and it's meant to denote a focus on metabolism and the ways in which we look at metabolism and organize that information for the benefit of the practitioner and the patient. And there are really two components to the online system itself. There is the personalized assessment, which gathers information about the individual, including biological data, biometric, and self-report. And all of this information is run through a complex set of algorithms and produces a comprehensive yet personalized plan for the patient. And the plan really focuses on not only what's wrong or imbalanced with the individual, but also what to do about it from a dietary supplement perspective. We also have a second system that is paired with this first one called the Lifestyle Guidance Portal. And what this does is it ensures that all of the healthy behaviors and daily choices that our patients are making that offer a foundation for health are also being attended to. And so the Lifestyle Guidance Portal allows for the direct application of diet recommendations and exercise prescription, but in an individual way. You really can't make meaningful change in your patients without supporting them as a whole person, and in particular their lifestyle and behaviors. Next slide. So going back to the personalized assessment report, this is a mechanism by which we collect data, and we use a lab called AML, where patients have their blood drawn. They can have that done in your office, or they even have phlebotomists that will go to the patient's home. And then the biological information is automatically inputted into the system. The patient will also answer a comprehensive survey, and so this self-report data will also be included in the assessment. Then the magic happens, and the magic is that we have about 16,000 algorithms that evaluate all of this different information. It weights it, and it creates a output, which is the plan for the patient. And the plan includes not only where are the metabolic imbalances, but also the what to do about it. The plan is comprehensive, it's detailed, and it's quite focused. Next slide. So this is an example of a plan, and we'll get into a plan in greater detail. But for many of you who have seen Jim and I lecture, we like to organize our information around a heuristic, as we call it, and that is these 5 triads or metabolic domains. These are areas of metabolism that function as a single unit. And these 5 areas for us represent great importance with respect to a metabolic map for the individual. Each of these 5 areas are separated out within the report, and you can see that in this example they're color-coded, and there's graphical representation as well as numerical. So it's very easy for your eye to be drawn to the key areas or domains of metabolism for the patient. And you can see on the left-hand side a circle that is connected with the triangle or the triad, and this circle has a number inside. The greater the imbalance within that particular triad. So anything above 500 or so really does represent significant abnormalities that are contained within that particular bodily set of systems. So it's an easy way, especially for the practitioner who's familiar with how to review the report, to look at all of the information that's gathered and then condense down into just 5 areas. And once you become familiar with what these 5 areas represent, symptomatically, metabolically, as well as generally health-wise, it makes it very easy to have a good discussion with the patient on what's wrong, where do we start, what are the supplements that I might consider, and then it's quick to flip over to the Lifestyle Guidance Portal and assign diet and exercise. So we've taken out a lot of the guesswork in that regard, because we give you a place to begin, we show you where the imbalances are, and we make suggestions on a comprehensive plan through the system itself. Here's an example of the output as it relates to just the dietary supplement list. So this is only obviously part of the report, and this has to do with the supplements that are recommended. And here you can also see how the color scheme is consistent with respect to whatever supplement is recommended, and we will assign that supplement to any triad that it might support. So, for example, you can see almost halfway down, there's a supplement. It's a little hard to read, but it looks like there's all 5 triads that are represented or addressed by this single product, and not surprisingly, it's magnesium. There's an argument for magnesium across all 5 triads. Most of these supplements, though, are addressing a single imbalance within one triad. You can also see there's one supplement that addresses 2 triads. And again, it's all color-coded and consistent so that it's simple. And you can decide based on the degree of imbalance and the tolerance of the patient where to begin with the individual with respect to which products and which imbalances. We typically suggest you start with the first 1 or 2 most imbalanced triads. So there's additional patient information that is outputted in the report. So it's not enough just to give them the raw data and even show trends in that regard, but we also like to support them more globally so they better understand what we're talking about when we discuss each of the triads. And so at the end of the report, and mind you, it's a 42-page document, there is prose or written descriptions of the 2 most imbalanced triads. So this is just an example of adrenals and the writing that we do to describe what the adrenals are, why is it important that they produce cortisol, what does cortisol do, what are the symptoms when it's imbalanced. And I think many of us can appreciate the fact that we often find ourselves repeating statements and repeating phrases and repeating ideas to patients all day long, and this makes it a lot easier to, hand the patient a report, maybe be a little more superficial in certain descriptions and not have to take up so much time, so you can really focus on the plan itself. So this is sort of expediting the process in that regard, and the information is relatively comprehensive with respect to what the patients are able to read. Okay, so we're going to flip over to an actual report, and so this is the full document. When you first view it, it might be a little overwhelming because there's a lot of information in here, but the key is really to understand that even though there's quite a lot of data that is represented by the report, at the end of the day, what you're really doing is breaking down the patient into 5 areas, and really addressing ultimately the first 1 or 2 that are most imbalanced. So even though the report is 40-odd pages long, and there's lots of bits and pieces of information, there really is a bottom line to this. So that allows you to focus the discussion with your patients and bring meaning to where their issues are and describe a plan that hopefully will create good change for them. So this is just the introduction of the report, and then we're going to scroll down to a little bit more of a description of the kinds of data points that are collected. Here is the main page of the report. So this is, I think, about page, well, it's page 4. And what this does, this is kind of an aggregate or an overview of all of the information that's collected, analyzed, and outputted. And it's organized by the 5 triads. So you can see on the left-hand side, those 5 triads are represented by triangles with color coding as well as numerical values. And in this particular patient, the first triad actually happens to be the most imbalanced as well, with a total score of 745. And then triad 2 happens to be the second most imbalanced as well. Now it's not always that, and you can see how triad 5, which is 385, ranks 3rd in terms of the overall dysfunction. But it's neatly laid out, it's very clean, and it gives you scoring in both a numerical format as well as graphical with the green, yellow, red designation. And within each of those lines or bars, you can say which components of the triad are the most imbalanced. And that's key because, of course, you know, sort of obviously, but by the heuristic, each triad has 3 areas that comprise that subdomain. So, for example, in triad 1, it's adrenal, thyroid, pancreas, cortisol, thyroid, insulin, 3 hormones that all manage energy in the body from different perspectives. And when patients have overwhelming stress and they're not eating as efficiently for their metabolism and their thyroid is becoming sluggish, they tend to have energy decline and weight gain and fatigue and achiness and sleeplessness. And all of that is typically represented within an imbalance of triad 1. And so this helps you organize that discussion and zoom right in and say, okay, if we're going to focus on one area to get this patient better, it's going to be triad 1 because it's the most imbalanced. And you can see all 5 of the triads are represented in that regard. This is a way of organizing the information a little differently. It's not triad-based, but it's also an aggregation of the data. But what we do is we show where the patient is most imbalanced across important body systems or functions. And so this is more to say, well, what are the consequences of these multiple triad imbalances with respect to inflammation or cardiometabolic disease or cognition or detox? And then these are ranked as well. And you can see this patient overall with their total metabolic code vitality index, which is the sum total of the derangements or imbalances. This is a person who's high risk. So this represents then, again, all of those thousands and thousands of algorithms that are looking at ratios of data and connections within the data to produce this sort of snapshot of where is the patient today and where might they be going in the future if you don't do anything about it. Then we go one layer deep. So I mentioned that data is both biological and biometric as well as qualitative. And we just reviewed sort of the aggregate-based data. Now we go into what are the actual lab results of this patient. So for you as the practitioner, you're probably going to want to know exactly what each of the levels are and how do they rank within the system. So we give you indices with respect to alert low, low normal, optimal, high normal, and then alert high. So it's easy to zone right in on what are the individual numerical values that are abnormal or not optimal within the context of each of the triads. You can kind of eyeball this and say, well, clearly this is someone who's got significant stress-related issues. Their thyroid is significantly imbalanced as well, and you're beginning to see changes in their blood sugar control too, because this patient's fasting blood sugar was 104, and clearly they have low cortisol throughout most of the day, and they're starting to express thyroid imbalance. So these are common trends that we typically see in our patients, and this is just the graphical and numerical representation in that regard. And the same is true for all of the triads. Gut, immune, brain, again, the labs are drawn through AML, and you can order different size panels. There's a silver panel, which is basic, and then there's gold and platinum. And depending on how much information you want to get and the willingness of the patient to spend money, you can get a basic set of data or a very, very comprehensive set. So whatever panel is chosen that's what's integrated into the system and then evaluated and run through the algorithm to create the output. So gut immune brain, this is the second most imbalanced triad. Here are the numerical values. I know a lot of us deal with this particular triad all the time in terms of food sensitivities, inflammation, and mood and cognitive related issues. Triad 3, cardiopulmonary neurovascular. This is risk for cardiometabolic disease, common markers including cholesterol and blood pressure and uric acid and pulse and so on and so forth. So obviously there's some imbalance here with respect to objective data in the patient. And then liver, lymph, kidney are drainage organs. This is the set of pathways and functions in the body that handle environmental exposures and allow us to sort of live safely in an unclean world. So this is, in my mind, the triad that brings clarity to our metabolism in a sense. And, you know, if there's liver inflammation or poor detox or a sludgy gallbladder, patients tend to fill up. And that in turn will not only generate its own set of symptoms, but will imbalance the rest of the triads as well. And then finally, triad 5, which are reproductive hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Some of us probably spend most of our time within this triad, although I think everybody has this kind of growing recognition that the most efficient and effective hormone replacement occurs as you're balancing across the entirety of the metabolism and not just replacing hormones per se. So this particular triad captures the details of various aspects of estrogen metabolism, testosterone and related hormones, and then progesterone as well. And clearly this is someone who's essentially menopausal because the levels are so low. So once we move beyond the lab data, we then get into the results of the survey or the qualitative analysis. So this is the self-report. So in some sense, if you're a researcher, you have a research background, what we're doing is mixed methods analysis. We're looking at quantitative and qualitative data. So the report gives you all the quantitative, and then it also breaks down on its own the qualitative, the self-report, the survey. And sometimes we'll find that symptoms are very much in alignment with the lab abnormalities, and other times symptoms are not in alignment. But we also give quite a lot of weight to symptoms. So when you look at the aggregate total of a patient, it really is a combination of all of these pieces of information. And so it's very important to recognize where the patient is feeling the worst and address that too in the context of restoring normal metabolism. So as much as there was kind of a sum total or an aggregate scoring system for just lab data, we have the same for survey analysis here. And you can see that it's organized in the same fashion by triads and color coding and numerical as well as symbolic. And then we go another layer deep, and we show that each triad, while it has its own intrinsic set of labs, which you just reviewed, there are an additional set that are creating impingement or pressure on that particular system. So for example, homocysteine, which you would think would be in cardiometabolic or cardiopulmonary neurovascular, triad 3, it clearly has import or weight with respect to triad 1. And so this is a snapshot in terms of how we begin to cross-reference individual data points across all the triads. So you can see very quickly how each of these markers are loading into triad 1, and this is creating high risk, which is the bar in the upper right. So triad 1 to 4, liver, lymph, kidney, 3 and 5. There are also descriptions there in terms of what are the functions of each of the triads. And then we go another layer deep. So for our patients that are real information junkies, they can go through this next section of the report and be very satisfied with the amount of information they're being given, because for every value that falls outside of the optimal range, the system is programmed to have a description of what was the marker high or low, and then also what does it mean. So you can see how there's an exposition for sodium and free T3 and free T4 and total T4 and so on and so forth. So again, this takes up your job in terms of, having to explain what all of these things are in detail, because you can just hand the report and say, okay, I'm going to give you a general overview, but you can certainly go home and read about each of these abnormal markers. This is, in some ways, I think, a representation, too, of where functional lab reporting really falls short, because this is how they report. They'll talk about each of the abnormal markers and what does it mean. But what the triad system does is then we begin to aggregate and show trends. So a lot of these values are relatively meaningless until you put them in a context. And the context is the triad system itself. So we can really see how abnormalities group together and create pressure across bodily systems. That, to me, is where the magic occurs with the report and the triad system in general. So when we get to the bottom of all of this, and here's a representation of salivary cortisol. Obviously, they're flat during the morning and then they peak at night. This is called reversing of the cortisol curve. So the sleep-wake cycle is opposite of the light nighttime cycle. So, all of you, I'm sure, are really familiar with what this component is. And so here's a graphical representation, and we include this as part of our analysis of the whole triad 1 domain. We also have databases built into it for drug-induced nutrient depletions. These are then also connected into the plan. So if a patient is on an ACE inhibitor or a thiazide diuretic or a statin, the evidence-based known depletions are also linked in, and there might be a recommendation for a particular product because of a potential drug-induced nutrient depletion. Now, in some cases, you can look at this and say, well, I really want to measure the nutrient, but at least it points in the direction of what is the potential imbalance, and it reminds you of all the medications that create depletions. And then finally, this is sort of the second punchline of the report, and this is the what do I do? So you review all of the imbalances, but then we provide some guidance with respect to the kinds of dietary supplements that we might recommend in our own practices for patients based on these issues. Now, for most patients, they're not going to take all of these supplements at once. You're probably going to work through 1 or 2 triads, get those in balance, and then keep moving. So this is the expanded list, but it's much more likely that you're going to choose a subset with the patient. And you may have your own favorite products that you want to recommend, and we've programmed the system so that it's pretty agnostic with respect to companies and products. These just represent, what our thinking is, but by no means do you have to use this or choose it. This is a suggestion as much as a concrete plan. But you can see it's pretty comprehensive for this individual too, if they really want to absorb all of it. We also give what's called preemptive education, essentially providing additional guidance for the practitioner to say what kind of diet should I recommend, what else should I do now or potentially in the future or far future. So you can see at 60 days or 90 days, we might recommend if a certain marker or symptom doesn't improve, check certain values. Or here's some additional products that you might want to consider if sleep is a problem, if it's still a problem, if their DHEA is not in balance, or when to recheck it. So provide some guidance in that regard. So you're not just left with a static report, but it also creates a future path for you as well. This is a nod to the Lifestyle Guidance Portal itself, so it's a reminder that we have not just 1 but 2 systems, and Marta will be going over this with respect to what's contained in it. And then behind this, or below it, gets into the descriptions of the first 2 tribes, or the 2 tribes that are most imbalanced. So the system recognizes which are the top 2, and then it produces the reports relative to each of the components of the triads. And you can see there are nice graphics, a lot of clear writing, lists that are helpful to patients so that they better understand, which are the systems that are abnormal, what are their typical functions, and what are the common symptoms that arise when they're not functioning normally. So that's the basics of the report. And You can see that it's relatively dense, but it's also well organized. And as a model, it helps to take information that's typically complex and confusing for patients and begin to put it in a framework that makes sense for both the practitioner and the patient. It creates a common language in the way that we talk about what's imbalanced and what should happen with the individual. But I think all of us recognize that supplements alone, really for most complex conditions, don't create a lot of meaningful change. And so you really have to work on the lifestyle-related issues, including diet and exercise and healthy behaviors, and that's what the Lifestyle Guidance Portal is designed to do. So Marta is going to be talking about and demonstrating the Lifestyle Portal.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Heyman. So we're going to transition over here, bear with me for just a moment, to the Lifestyle Guidance Portal. And I actually have it brought up, branded as our metabolic code demo. I'm going to log out here because I'm sure I've already timed out, and log back in. And basically, it's important to understand that the Metabolic Code Lifestyle Guidance Portal can be used in conjunction with Air Support and the report that we just looked at with Dr. Heyman, or it can be used separately with patients that you feel you're ready to transition them into a diet program and or an exercise program. So I'm going to give you a quick demo, so just bear with me while I log into the system. And after we're done with this, we will take questions on both systems. So as you know, the partner to the analysis of the patient's metabolic status and everything that we demonstrated just a moment ago is lifestyle factors, lifestyle changes, including diet and exercise. Supplements, although they are very, very effective in our program, they need to be paired with a true life change, and that's probably the hardest part and the most challenging part as practitioners, is to transition our patients into lifestyle changes that are going to last. And so whatever we can do to make that easier, any kind of tool that we have always is really a benefit to our practice. My background, by the way, is dietetics and integrative health. I've worked with Jim Laval for well over 10 years, as well as Laura Laval, registered dietitian. And these are actual programs that we have used in our clinic. And we have these marked as proprietary programs here in the system. So besides a lot of different programs that you could choose from for your patients, we do have the metabolic code diets, which are elimination diets. They are free of the top allergens and basically allow the patients to explore food sensitivities and barriers to weight loss and metabolic balance in their lives. And so I'm just going to peek at one of these as a preview and show you the quality of these plans. This portal is also mobile ready, so your patients don't have to sit at their computer. They can use their phone, they can use their tablet or iPad, and they can actually track their foods that they've eaten. They can track measurements and weight and blood pressure and other parameters. Here we just have some introductory information, and every day this plan does come to your patient's email, so if they choose to do that. So it's just a nice reminder for the patient what to eat. There are shopping lists available as well. We have everything available in PDF format, so patients can read about carb counting, food elimination. They can look at the meal plans. They can print a shopping list. We educate our patients, and again, that's important for us as practitioners, is to really provide the tools on an ongoing basis to educate our patients. And these are FAQs for the diet itself. We also have lists and lists of substitutions. So if you have a patient that has certain food allergies or other intolerances, they can easily substitute one of the other breakfasts or lunches or dinners or snacks as we have them organized here. So as a practitioner, this is a robust tool for you to use with your patients. Not only can you use the programs for the diet, you can actually look at the fitness programs, and I'm just going to preview one of those here. and assign those concurrently with a diet program for your patient. All the fitness programs have high-quality videos so patients can observe proper form for exercises as well. And as a patient, the patients can track their progress on the portal. It's very easy to enroll patients. It's basically a one-click and fill out their email and their name and select the wellness plan. Usually we do recommend, if you're going to follow the protocol and air support and the supplements that are recommended there, is to choose either the 1500 for women or the 1800 calorie program for men as well. So basically that's the lifestyle guidance portal. It can be used alone or it can be used in concurrence with the air support system, as Dr. Heyman demonstrated. We have a lot of options here for programs. You can also design your own if you wish, and you can private message the patient. So you can keep up with your patient for compliance reasons and purposes. So basically that's the Lifestyle Guidance Portal. I'm going to show you our link as well on metaboliccode.com. So if you want to go to metaboliccode.com, actually let me just log out of this. And you're going to see the Join Now link in just a second, so bear with me. We do offer a 30-day free trial on both systems. And so if you click either Air Support or Lifestyle Guidance Portal, it really doesn't matter where you start, you will get a bundled version of, not a version, but you'll have a bundle, the opportunity to bundle the products together. The cost for Air Support on its own is $199 a month, and that is, again, 30 days free, and then after your 30-day free trial, you'll be billed the $199 a month. Lifestyle Guidance Portal, if you bundle the two, the total is $348 per month. So this becomes $249, and Air Support becomes $99 a month. So you can go to either one to start your free trial. Once you fill out the form, you can have the option to add the other one, so it doesn't really matter where you start, as you can see here. Okay. Another thing I do want to point out is that we do have an online blog where we post all of these presentations. As a Metabolic Code System subscriber, you not only have options to view the recorded case studies, but you also have proprietary presentations by James Laval and Andrew Heyman, as well as Laura Laval. And so you have options to come back here at any time as a subscriber to view these case studies, to view the triad discussions, to view diet discussions, etc. So this is another perk, is education is really the third part of our system, as well as the monographs. I guess I should show you the monographs quickly here. If we go here, back in the Lifestyle Guidance Portal, we have an array of charts, monographs for different nutraceuticals, vitamins and nutrients, herbals as well. And these are, again, a great resource for your practice. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions to our audience. And Janet, if you want to, let's see who we have, either unmute or just let them type the questions into the box. We'd be glad to answer any questions you have this evening about the Metabolic Code System.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay. Do you want to field the questions, or do you want me to field the questions?
Yeah, I can read it,
Okay.
and I can answer it, I believe.
Okay.
So Dr. Fraus asks, is it one subscription per month per patient, or do I subscribe for my practice and use it for different patients? The latter of your statement is true. You will subscribe as a practitioner, and then you have unlimited access. You can enroll as many patients as you wish for that price. So for the $348 bundled, you have unlimited enrollment of patients on both systems. So that was a good question.
There's another.
Okay, we have how much does a complete profile cost the patient? We do not charge you per patient for the profile. Now, the laboratory will have a charge, and that's something that we could discuss with you on a one-on-one basis. We have information from AML Labs available. So if you want to email us at info@metaboliccode.com, and we can respond to you privately and send you the registration forms and all the informational forms for AML. As far as how much you will charge the patient, that's really up to you. Some practices build the cost into a visit. Some charge additional monies for a visit or for a report, but that is really based on your own practice, and we don't make any recommendations for that. And I hope that answers the question. Janet, I don't know if you can type into the chat info@metaboliccode.com. I'm not sure if I have access. Oh, yes, I do actually.
Yeah. Info.
I'm going to type it into the chat.
Type it into the question box. If you type it in the bottom of the question box and send it to all, then they'll all get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, for more specifics, and if you want a one-on-one demo, I'd be glad to set you up. You can ask more specific questions for your practice, and we can actually guide you to set up. Basically, in 24 hours after you enroll, you will have access to the system, and you can start using it with your patients. If you're going to use the lab, it only takes a few days to get set up with AML diagnostics. And if you decide, you can also start just with using the questionnaire. The questionnaire is very comprehensive. It contains 165 questions for male patients and 172 questions for female patients, covering all of the triad areas. So it's a great starting point, and many of our practices only use the questionnaire and are getting great results with just that, because it does give you supplement recommendations and treatment guidelines for the patient as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I did send that off.
Are there any more questions?
Oh, here we go. Oh, we got a thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we'll see anything else. Let's leave it open for just a few more minutes.
Okay.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
We got one.
Okay. If we just do metabolic code only, how does the system work? Clarify what we do not get if we do not sign up with the additional. Okay, if I'm understanding you correctly, are you saying if you're just going to do air support, that's the metabolic code air support system that Dr. Heyman demonstrated? So that system itself, and this is important to understand that they are standalone systems. One does not depend on the other, but they do work synergistically. So it's important that you realize that you can use the one without the other. And so from a financial standpoint, it's $199 for air support, which is what I think you're saying, the metabolic code. And so if you do not sign up, you do not get the diets, you do not get the resources, you do not get the exercise programs if you don't add on the lifestyle guidance portal. So that's the difference. Okay, so we have another question. Could I use a local Canadian lab to do blood tests and input? Currently, we do not have a way for practitioners to input data into our back end. We have the algorithms coded based on AML labs, diagnostic, basically their lab ranges. So anytime we add a new lab, we have to code our entire system to use the ranges that come from that lab. So the answer is no, that right now you cannot do that, but we do have several Canadian physicians effectively using the system, and AML will work with some parts of Canada. One of our practitioners just ran some labs. I believe she's in Toronto. And some just use the questionnaire only option.
And we are working on creating relationships with other lab companies. There are major integration and technical issues as well as programming for each new lab that we interface with. But rest assured, that's exactly the direction that we're going, because obviously you want a system that is quite open with respect to the various typical lab companies that are out there, and including that. But again, realize that even with common analytes, the ranges might be different for different labs. And even if it's a slight difference, it means that we still have to reprogram the system. But we are moving in that direction. We chose AML first for a number of reasons, and that's the one that is integrated now, but it won't be too far into the future when we begin to integrate with other companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Heyman. All right, last call for questions, and then we'll wrap it up. I think we're good. Okay, so as you know, this session was recorded. If you'd like to view it again, you can go to metaboliccode.com/blog, as well as viewing some of our other webinars and educational webinars. Make sure you check out our events tab to see what's going on in the future. And we hope that you can contact us if you have further questions, info@metaboliccode.com.
Okay. It sounds
Great.
like.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you. Great evening.
Good night.